evening, all of our social media friends that's tuning in tonight. Welcome to the Town Council public hearing and special meeting May the 21st, 2020 via electronic communications. This special meeting of the Town Council will be held electronically as provided under Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3708.2, subsection A3, which permits the public bodies to meet by electronic communications without a quorum physically assembled at one location. Since on March the 12th, 2020, Governor Northam declared a state of emergency for the Commonwealth of Virginia arising from the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of this meeting is to hold a public hearing to receive comments regarding one, a conditional use permit application to allow a residential unit above commercial use, where to go? I've lost my spot. Commercial use in a C1 zoning district at 325 Mason Avenue, and two, the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. Following the public hearing, council will discuss and vote on the conditional use permit. An audio recording is being made of this meeting. This meeting will also is being streamed live on Facebook, as well as being videotaped for viewing from the Times website after processing. Public comments will be accepted this evening via Facebook Live, emails to the clerk at capecharles.org, and call-ins to 757-331-3259, extension 10. Callers will be asked to leave a voicemail message to be played during the public hearing. Comments were also solicited to be emailed to the clerk prior to the meeting. All votes taken this evening will be by roll call vote and recorded in the minutes. Any council member who leave this meeting or arrive after the start of the meeting must verbally note their attendance. Only essential business of the town of Cape Charles can be done in this manner. These procedures will remain in effect until the COVID-19 crisis has been alleviated. Do any of the council members have any questions of this? Hearing no questions, can I get a roll call, please? Starting with Councilman Buckholz.
Buckholz present.
Holloway present.
Bennett present.
Bannon present.
Grossman present.
Let it be known we've established a quorum. Item 3A, a public hearing, conditional use permit application, 325 Mason Avenue. Ms. Libby, do we have any
as of this moment, we do not have anything for the conditional use, just on the budget.
all right. With council.
Tammy might have a
Is
question.
this where where would I make a suggestion for adding something to the agenda? Later or now?
I
would wait till after the public hearing.
public
Okay.
hearing. Yeah.
I thought so, but I wasn't one with the consent agenda, and I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm stuck. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
With no public comments on the conditional use application, I would like to ask council to close that section of the public hearing and move on to the.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Bannon,
Yes.
Grossman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Buckholz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
All right. Item 3B, public hearing for proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Ms. Libby, do we have any comments?
Yes. The first one is from Bob Panic, and it says the mayor, council, and staff have done a commendable job in developing the budget for next fiscal year in light of the depressed revenue projections caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. I ask that council make one adjustment to the budgeted capital projects. Please replace the $15,000 project to restripe the parking spaces on Mason Avenue with the $14,000 project to replace the zip line in the children's playground. Council adopted a capital improvement program policy document in January of this year. The need for proper maintenance of existing town assets is stressed on page 7. Ultimately deferring essential maintenance or asset replacement could reduce the organization's ability to provide services and could threaten public health, safety, and overall quality of life. In addition, as the physical condition of the asset declines, deferring maintenance and/or replacement could increase long-term costs and liabilities. The zip line had reached the end of its service life and was removed about a year ago because of high maintenance costs and safety concerns. It is time to replace this asset and restore the playgrounds to its formal functionality. While some people dislike backing into the parking spaces on Mason Avenue, they are perfectly functional in their current state. New paint can wait until revenue improves. Take this opportunity to do something positive for the children of our town and those of our guests. This next one is from Sue Panic. Says, my concerns relate to safety. I would like council members, the mayor, and the town manager to please discuss and reconsider spending money to change the current back-end parking lines on Mason Avenue. I know a few people find back-end parking uncomfortable and inconvenient, but there are alternatives. I walk or ride my bike on Mason Avenue almost daily. For the past year, I have been doing an informal survey of the number of people ignoring the parking regulation. At the height of summer, with almost all back-end spaces full, there have never been more than 7 cars illegally parked. At other times, I have observed no more than 2 to 4 illegally parked vehicles. The majority of drivers do not seem to have a problem backing in. I believe you are all familiar with VDOT reasons as to why this parking method is safer, but here are 2 examples for you to consider. Last Sunday, I observed a family of 4 who illegally parked face in. When I saw them, they were loading their bicycles back onto the car. 2 adults, 2 children, and 4 bikes were behind the car and almost to the middle of the street. Very dangerous. It would have been much safer for them to load their bikes from the sidewalk. A second example represents the safety aspect of back-end parking. My wheelchair-bound friend was with me. I backed into a spot, went to the sidewalk, got her chair from the trunk. She hobbled out without having to go around the open car door, unavoidable if you parked face in and her chair was already on the sidewalk. As we have been safer because we are using an abundance of caution during this pandemic, I would urge you to do the same with our parking situation on Mason Avenue. Thank you. Sue Panic, full-time resident. This next email is from Hank Mayer. Says, I would like to submit 2 comments with regard to the current draft fiscal year 2021 budget. 1, the fiscal year 2021 budget was developed during a period when the town council had shut down all seasonal rentals, which are a huge tax revenue source to the town. That was lifted 2 weeks ago, along with the loosening of other COVID-19 related Virginia state limits on what had been referred to as non-essential businesses. Additional businesses and individual loosening measures are expected to be issued by the governor next Thursday, May 28th, and another set 2 weeks after that. It is entirely possible that the Cape Charles Park and beaches will be open, maybe with some conditions, but still open before the July 4th weekend that begins the new fiscal year on July 1st. 2, I asked that the town replace the $15,000 capital project to restrike the parking spaces on Mason Avenue with the $14,000 project to replace the zip line in the children's playground. Mayor Dyes made an important point in his response to my earlier budget comment. The town does owe a responsibility to the public and especially the children who live and visit Cape Charles. The playground zip line that was removed by Public Works in the spring of 2019 should be replaced this summer as the town begins to open up from the COVID-19 impacts and constraints. We need to begin feeling normal again. And I have not received anything else and no voicemails to date.
Thank you very much, Ms. Libby. We appreciate it. With that,
I'll make a motion that we close public comments on the budget.
So moved. Or second.
Councilman Buckholz,
Yeah. That's the,
Bennett,
Yes.
yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilwoman Holloway, I'm sorry. Councilman Grossman,
Yes.
Councilman Bannon.
Yes.
So it's unanimous. The public hearings are now closed. Thank everybody. Tammy, do you want to,
Yes, I would like to make a motion to add discussion of the beach opening and timeline of that to the agenda.
all right, so with that being said, I would like to ask council to consider the beach opening, but I'd also like to add to that, to the agenda as item 4B, beach opening and council meetings. If I can get a motion for that, and a
I
second.
move to add those two items.
Can I-
Second.
So we got a motion, we got a second. Councilman Bannon.
I seconded.
Well, I need a vote now.
Okay. To open?
Yes.
I said
Council-
open.
No,
Yeah.
to ask you to vote to put it on the agenda.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Grossman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilman Buckles.
Yes.
So we are adding beach opening and our future meetings to the agenda as item 4B. So 4A is a conditional use permit application for 325 Mason Avenue. This is an action item. Mr. Hosey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a pretty straightforward item, and this is one of those things that got caught up in the COVID-19 issues. This was in the pipeline before all this happened and was supposed to come forward before now. It is non-controversial. I just needed some time to figure out how to bring it forward. It's been through the Planning Commission. It's been through public hearing at the Planning Commission. There was no public comments at the Commission, and the Commission is recommending approval. It's now in your hands for your consideration. Staff recommends approval.
I'll make a motion that we accept or approve the conditional use permit for the residential dwelling above the commercial area for 325 Mason.
We have a motion. Councilman Grossman, we have a second by Vice Mayor Bennett. Councilwoman Holloway,
Yes.
any discussion? Wait a minute, let me go back up. Any discussion? Councilwoman Holloway, we've got you. Councilman Buckholz,
Yes.
Councilman Bannon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilman Grossman.
Yes.
Let it be known it's by roll call vote unanimous. Item 4B, this is just added, so it's a discussion about reopening the beach and also our meetings. So Councilwoman Holloway, Briggs, you brought this up. If you want to start this discussion about the beaches, and I'll chime in after we get done with beaches about the council meetings.
Great. I just thought it would be good for us to have a chance as a council and the mayor to talk about the recent opening of Virginia Beach and some confusion over what beaches were open and the process that Virginia Beach went through to have that approved. I know the town manager and the mayor have done work on this, and I thought this forum would be good for our residents and community to hear the work that's being kind of done and evaluated and just where we're at. So I thought it'd be a good discussion to have tonight.
All right. Mr. Hosey, would you like to chime in on any right now and just kind of bring us up to speed on thought processes and stuff from a staff perspective?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So as was discussed, the governor approved opening the Virginia Beach on Monday. However, that was at the result of an extensive effort on Virginia Beach's part. They made a request to open up, and they put together a very complex plan to enforce the safety protocols of putting lots of people out there to monitor, as in the form of what they're calling ambassadors, so that we just kind of walk around the beach and nudge people in the right way. Then they would have law enforcement officers in the event it kicked up a notch and they needed enforcement. I think they even had aerial drone surveillance of the area. They had quite a complex plan. My understanding is, while listening to the governor on Monday, the first plan was actually rejected as not being tough enough, and the governor sent it back down to them, and they retooled it and received the governor's approval. When asked on Monday about other beaches, he said if any other beach was interested in trying to open, he pointed to the Virginia Beach plan and said, "There's your template. Use that as a guide for a plan that a community could bring forward for the governor to consider." So that is that's why Virginia Beach is open. They spent a lot of time and effort putting together a plan. They're going to spend a lot of money implementing that plan, but they have a much bigger beach and they have much more area to work with. So yes, it has been confusing. There's been a number of people questioning all week whether our beach was open or not, and we've been having to clarify that nothing's changed. It's the same as it's been. Our beach is closed except for exercising and fishing. Now, last weekend we had quite a bit of abuse, despite a significant police effort to try and enforce it. At our last meeting, we talked about our enforcement issues. You asked me to crank up staffing. We did. We typically only have one officer on duty at a time. We had two on the beach most all of last weekend. They approached over 50 individuals. But it's very difficult. Once they see a police officer approaching them, they get up and start moving and claiming they're exercising, or they'll pick up a fishing pole and claim they're fishing. It's very difficult to enforce. So this week we decided to try and tighten down on it a little bit more because it's a holiday weekend, and we had new signs developed that have been put up on the beach entrances that are very explicit about prohibitive items. So coolers, chairs, umbrellas, those types of things are not allowed on the beach because those are not consistent with exercise. Fishing will require a license. If you're claiming to be fishing, you better have a license with you while you're doing it. Those types of things. That'll make it much easier for our officers to enforce. We also, it was requested that we put a sign out on 13, letting people see when they come in that yes, our beach is still closed. So we've done all those things in preparation for this weekend. And we haven't changed anything. Nothing's changed. We're just trying to get better compliance with the executive orders as they exist. Now, the mayor and I had a conference call this afternoon with the governor's office regarding the beaches. They were curious about where we were, and we were curious about where they were. And so we got a little bit of insight as to what might be happening. And we don't think it's going to be a flip of the switch. It's not that the beaches are closed and then they will be open. I think what we're going to see is a phased approach to opening the beaches, as we're seeing a phased approach with everything else. So the indication that the mayor and I got this afternoon was that a phase 2 type opening of the beach would allow for recreational type uses of the beach, meaning sunbathing and that sort of thing, but with some restrictions, meaning there would be a limit on the size of the groups that could congregate. There would be a requirement that these groups be spaced at a certain amount. Those sorts of things. I don't know exactly what the restrictions would be, but that's what I would expect to see. Timing, no one knows on that. They're waiting for trends and information regarding new cases, the availability of PPE, all that good stuff. I would imagine sometime in June, we would see a movement towards that area. Whether that's June 10th or not, we don't know. They don't know. But that's where we're heading with the beach, probably. Now, where that makes it interesting for us is last time we met and we discussed this as a discussion item, I specifically asked you about our other town facilities. And the guidance that I received from you at that time was that as long as the governor was keeping the beach closed, that we would keep the town facilities closed as well. And that's what I'm doing. The question now becomes, if there's a phased opening of the beach, what does that mean for our town facilities? And so I would throw that out as a discussion item amongst yourselves for the purposes of this discussion. And we probably will need to, based on our discussions this afternoon with the governor's office, I will start to put together a plan for a phased opening with some restrictions. I'm not sure what that means yet, but I'll start talking to staff about what that might mean.
With John, correct me if I'm wrong, during our conversation today, even if we kind of developed a plan, got it to the governor's office today, there's a process and it's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen to open the beach up next week. And I don't think they give us a timetable per se, but the process that we were told, because it has to go through the Virginia Department of Health first for their review, and then come back, and then it might get sent back to us and say you need to tweak this, and then sent back and stuff. And so I took it as at least like a 2-week process, and that's just me. It might even be longer. It might be a little bit shorter. But that's just what I took it. What did you think, John, on that?
I think you're exactly right, Mr. Mayor. First of all, we're starting from square one today. If you told me tomorrow to start developing a plan, it could, Monday's a holiday. It could take, best part of a week to put together a plan in the first place. Then yes, it's got to go through the Department of Health first, then to the governor's office. I doubt we could get a plan approved before June 10th anyway, the June 10th deadline anyway. I certainly, if that was the direction, I would certainly work towards that. But I agree with your assessment of the timeline. The other point that I would mention, I guess, just because we are in a public forum and this part has come up before throughout the week, and I guess I want to say it publicly, is that we've gotten lots of input about the economic need to open up soon. And that's absolutely a valid consideration. But there's also the public health concern part of it. So it's really a two-pronged decision. And where we are better suited to understand the impacts of the economics of our own town, what we don't have very good access to is all the public health data that the governor has. And so that's why, up until now, we have followed the state's lead. So we've been waiting for the state to say that something is safe or not safe, whether that's the beaches or whether that's dining out in your patio or whatever it is. So I guess I just wanted to make sure the public understood that's we're not making that up. We don't know the information the governor does, so we have been deferring to the governor's judgment on that, and that's where we are today.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have much of a choice, being a Dillon State ruled community. I mean, the governor's opened Pandora's box by selecting one place to open up and shutting the rest of us down, and our hands are tied. I mean, you're exactly right. It's going to take two weeks at least, and we don't have the assets that Virginia Beach has, for drone coverage and all this other. We don't have parking garages. We've got a light staff of police. I mean, they put us in a rock and a hard place because we're not even comparable to Virginia Beach. And it makes us kind of look, I don't know, it just makes us look asinine. Excuse the French on this part, but what he did was just not good for an overall state look, because it puts us, making us look like we can't do our job, and our hands are tied, which is crazy. I'm just voicing my opinion on this.
Councilwoman Holloway, if y'all could just raise your hand like Councilwoman Holloway, and so that way we're not overstepping on each other. So Councilwoman Holloway.
The way I looked at this is that, we very often don't want to compare ourselves to Virginia Beach. We're very different. And I believe that the governor's looking at this, as John said, with public health safety in mind. I don't think if we don't have a parking garage, there's no expectation to reduce parking in the parking garage, but it is maybe to reduce parking. But, that's not going to help us. I think we have to look at each piece of what that plan would be and implement it for Cape Charles like we do anything else. My biggest concern is if we don't start the process and get through it and we get to June 10th, and John, you had implied that you kind of got a feeling that maybe it was going to go beyond June 10th. if we wait until June 10th and then start, we really are behind the game. You know, our situation is different. We can control our beach differently. I just feel like from an economic perspective, we do need to look at it. I'm not saying the answer is yes. I just felt like we should be looking at what would it take for Cape Charles to open safely. That isn't just because we want it to open so that all the shops do better or the restaurants. That's not what I'm saying. But what would Cape Charles need to do to make it to be able to open it? And I think your conversations with the secretary today are a big start. You know, at least it shows that we as a town community are asking, what are those steps and what can we do if it's safe to do that?
Vice Mayor Bennett?
I really don't have much of a different stance on this than I did at our meeting last week. I see it as, the phased approach has been implemented. We're working through the phases. We could get to phase 2 in another week or 8 days. Primary complaints I've heard about the beach being closed is from short-term rental owners who want to get their short-term rentals open, which they can, but then they want their people to have something to do, which the beach isn't open, so they can't. So, I appreciate their interest in getting open, and I'm interested in them getting open too. But I haven't changed my mind since last Thursday night. I think we've done the right thing for the majority of for all of our full-time residents, and also for our guests coming to Cape Charles. So while I appreciate y'all having the call with the governor's staff, governments move in very slowly. So even if we launched a campaign to do this, I don't see it worth the effort, time, or money to do it. And I don't think we do have the capability of Virginia Beach to have 100 ambassadors going around telling people they're too close to each other, or, it's just, to me, good for Virginia Beach that they started that early on. I think it was ridiculous that the governor approved it. So I'm happy with where we are. I think when the phase 2 or any announcement of phase 2 comes out, we can reconsider. But I do think there's going to be phased opening of everything will be released or relaxed more when we go into phase 2. So I'm content with the decisions we've made.
Yeah, just to clarify one thing, Vice Mayor Bennett, the governor's office reached out to me and John. We didn't reach out to them, so they reached out to us to have the conversation. So just wanted to clarify that. Councilman Bannon, you have anything?
I got a number of emails after the vote last weekend saying that Councilman Bennett and Councilman Bannon did a very good job of saying, no, keep the town closed. But since we've opened it, open it completely. But again, the virus is still here. And our ratio is high in the state per capita. So
It is for Northampton County, that's for sure. But I was on the website the other day, and day before yesterday, there's 18 cases in the 23310 zip code. So it's we're actually pretty low in the Cape Charles zip code.
Are those current cases or just basically cases that were put on there and never taken off? We don't know that because they're not reporting it.
I think that's total cases.
Yeah, exactly. They're not taking people off that have recovered.
Yep. Councilwoman Holloway?
Can't figure that out.
I just wanted to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that we move forward in opening the beach. That's not the direction I'm going. I support where we were last week. I don't think one is changing the other, but I do think that our community and constituents need to know that we're discussing it and knowing what the options are. I mean, we would never need 100 ambassadors on Cape Charles Beach. We aren't Virginia Beach, but the ambassador program they're using is paid. Do we have the possibility of an ambassador program that is volunteer? I am worried that we get to June 10th and, the governor is making these decisions for the state, and areas are able to get exceptions to go further. this beach one was the only thing that has happened that was unique out, like one community could do something that the others didn't. It wasn't stricter, it went in that direction. So I feel like, and I'm sure the staff will already start to think about what that would look like anyway, but I would hate for us to wait till June 10th and then say, wow, we should go through that government process. And we now have another 2.5, 3 weeks. That's my worry. I'm not trying to rush this faster, but I don't want us to put all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Councilman Grossman?
Yeah, I'm with Tammy there. Plan ahead. Let's start working on the phased approach there without waiting for the tail end. I appreciate, John, you beefing up the enforcement on the weekend. Already heard from a church member, door order chair, and got chased. So I appreciate the enforcement there. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do
You're breaking up, Paul.
Councilman Grossman, your signal's very weak or something.
We received a lot of letters that people were breaking their bookings, but can you hear me?
No, your signal's bad.
Any better?
That's better.
Better.
All right, I'll give it a try. We got some letters that people were breaking their bookings, but I've also got other people telling me that the minute we made a decision last Thursday night, even with the beaches closed, they immediately had bookings for that weekend. So it goes both ways here. People are still anxious to come here, whether or not the beach is opened or not.
I came here before the beach was built.
Well,
We had it at low tide.
well, I want to say that
Barely.
I want to say that I do agree with Councilwoman Holloway and Councilman Grossman that we should, Mr. Hosey should be at least speaking to staff and start getting something together, a plan or something to bring to us to possibly send it up to the governor's office. It's better to have it and not need it than it is to need it and not have it. So I think it's something that I know he's got enough on his plate right now, but John, I apologize. But I think, go ahead, John.
So I guess I want to clarify my comments earlier, and I thought what Councilwoman Holloway was saying was that we should be prepared for what we expect to happen, which is the phase 2 opening. That I'm going to do. I mean, I was planning to do that anyway. And, but what I just heard you say, Mr. Mayor, is something quite different. You just said to put together a plan that would accelerate the phased opening. That's not what I was thinking we needed to do. But if that's where you want me to go, I need that clarified.
I think that's what Councilwoman Holloway was asking. Am I correct with that, Councilwoman Holloway?
Right. I think when we look at what you all think the timetable would be, which is about 3 weeks, given a week for the staff to put something together, 2 weeks for it to go through the system, that puts us pretty close to June 10th, I believe. I think what we're doing is what Mayor Dye said, is that we're preparing a plan that if June 10th they take a different turn and only people who have submitted a plan get to open their beaches, we've done that work. I don't think does that make sense?
It does. It's not. I appreciate the clarification. That's not what I originally thought you were talking about. I mean, what I need to. I guess I need to do two things then. I need to do that, but I also need to be prepared for what the governor's office told us today, a phase 2 opening. So if on June 10th they go to
Right.
phase 2 and they open the beach, but with certain limitations, I need to be prepared for
Right.
that.
Right.
Which is probably the more likely outcome. My biggest operational concern there is if they open it up for recreational activity and allow sunbathing and all of that, but with spacing requirements, at high tide and high volumes of people, there may not be enough space on our beach for everybody. So then what do we do? So that means we have to control the entry points and only let people on as people leave. I mean, this could be logistically very complicated. So that's kind of where my concern was and what I'm trying to plan for. But that would be the same case even if we try to accelerate it on our own. If you open up the floodgates, if you will, and come up with a Virginia Beach type plan, the Virginia Beach plan has spacing in it. That's why the governor approved it. And again, our beach is not big enough to accommodate that. So we would have to somehow figure out who's going to be on the beach and who's not. That's going to be a challenge for us to figure out. But regardless of whether we do it our way or whether we just wait for the phase one, that's going to be an issue for us because I'm pretty sure spacing is going to be part of the process going forward, and that's something that I'm going to have to work with the staff on to figure out.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
So I think overall in the state that the cases are still on the decline, level or on the decline. And as long as that continues, we're going to go into phase two on time. So I think John's initial plan of getting ready for phase two is time better spent than trying to put together a comprehensive request to the governor in the event that phase two doesn't go into effect on time. So I still disagree that we need to be putting together a plan and submitting it to the governor in the anticipation that cases are going to rise. And if cases rise, I don't want to open the beach anyway. You know, if cases go up and they delay phase two opening, and that's the only reason they would delay it legitimately, then we should be looking at closing down again, not opening more things up. So
I don't disagree with you, Vice Mayor Madden, on that. But I think even if it's just just something that John's just starts kind of doing something logistically, but either or, I mean, it's council's decision if there is a plan in place to send it or not. I mean, we'll know the numbers. It's your guys' the decision to submit that letter. We'll have the final say in submitting it with the plan, if there is a plan. I think decisions are going to be made, and I think the Councilwoman Holloway made a good point that the governor's looking at the Commonwealth as a whole. And then even on our phone conference today with Secretary Strickler, he was like, you know, we're relying on information from localities as well, and the feedback from localities as well. So either or, I still like having a plan and not using it is better than needing it and not having a plan.
I would agree with you for some things, but for this thing, I disagree.
Yeah, I don't, and to be honest with you, I'm not saying for Mr. Hosey to jump into it and get it to us by next Thursday. I want, you know, I think it's something that needs to be just to be worked on just in case it drags out. And if it drags out, and the cases are steady or continuing to rise or whatever, we don't have to submit that letter. And even if the governor approves it, I don't think we have to. We could reach out to him and say, look, you know, things are different here now from last week. Hold on, you know, stop the show for a minute here. So that's just my 2 cents. Go ahead, Councilman Buckholz.
We got 2 out right now.
We're missing. Yeah, we do.
So
Stand by. We don't have a quorum.
yeah, exactly. Tammy's working on it. She's been having internet problems.
Amy and Paul.
Tammy's trying to come back in videoless. Chris, we might see next week.
His doorbell rang.
Or his phone rang. Libby, you gotta let Tammy back in.
Yep.
She's coming in videoless.
Okay, Tammy is on.
We're back to a quorum.
I'm going to try to just stay on by phone instead of video so that maybe I won't get lost. Sorry, guys.
All right, so we're back to a quorum. Anybody heard anything from Chris, Libby? So anyway, I guess for this, to get through this segment, does either one of the four of you have any more comments? All right, so I guess to give Mr. Hosey a little bit more direction, I wish all five of you were on here, to either proceed with a plan or not. I think just ask each one of you to just say yay or nay. Councilman Grossman,
Yes.
Councilman Buckholz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
No.
Councilwoman Holloway. Councilwoman Holloway.
Yes.
Okay, she's still here. All right, so
Yeah.
the next thing I wanted to talk to is about us actually having regular meetings again. And so I know our current ordinance is saying we can have only 2 phone-in meetings. And John, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I would like to change the ordinance to allow for ones, to allow for people that may have underlying conditions or stuff that don't feel comfortable to be able to phone in as much as they want, as long as this COVID, the pandemic is, but the rest of us could meet in person and actually start having regular meetings if we feel to. I mean, we're opening up the town, the businesses are opening, people's interacting with people. I think we kind of need to get back to doing some things normal ourselves. I understand it. Some of our members do, our council members do have underlying conditions and may not feel comfortable, but I think it's as simple of Mr. Hosey getting an ordinance typed up to kind of change the language within that ordinance to allow people who don't feel comfortable to call in, and the people that do feel comfortable to be present at our council chambers. So with that being said, that's the logistics. And Mr. Hosey, please, if I've said anything out of the way, or if I'm not correct on any of that, or Ms. Libby, please correct me on that.
No, I think you covered it well, Mr. Mayor. We could certainly amend the ordinance to allow for additional call-ins, but we'd have to go through that process.
All right, Ms. Libby.
We need to find out from the state if we're permitted to do that, because the language in that ordinance is directly from the state code under the FOIA.
There's no either or, it's one or the other.
Yeah, so we need to find out from the state if we have the authority to lift that to call-ins per calendar year.
Okay, is that something our attorney could find out?
The ordinance,
That's probably a simple call.
So go ahead, Councilwoman Holloway.
sorry, I can't raise my hand when I can't be seen. Does what, John, does what the ordinance that we gave John got over the pandemic, does that give him the authority to make any of those decisions, given the pandemic? The one we made back in, I don't remember what month it was now, April?
You have the ability to meet electronically throughout for as long as the state declaration of emergency is in effect, and as long as our declaration of emergency is in effect. I think what the mayor is suggesting that we change our regular ordinance, not the emergency ordinance, but the regular ordinance that allows for business to be conducted by phone by a member. Right now, you're limited to 2. And what the clerk was saying is that she wants to make sure that that's not in state code, because if it is, then we don't have the ability to change it. And I don't know that for sure, but we would have to find that out.
So I'm not.
I guess I was asking not to change the ordinance, but to go meeting as we are and changing the type of meeting given the pandemic ordinance, not changing the regular ordinance.
Yeah, yes, we can continue to, right
Okay,
now.
There
Right
we
now,
are with that. Okay. Bye-bye.
right now, 2 of us could be in the same room, and the rest of us could be on video. So
Right.
Right. As many of us that wanted to be in one room could be, and everybody else could be on video. We could continue to do it that way for as long as we're still in this emergency condition. So that would be
right.
That would be a workaround, but would only last for as long as the declaration of emergencies were in place.
Right, and the problem with that
Right.
is,
That's what I thought.
yep, and the problem with that is the Wi-Fi at the council chambers to get all of us on here. It was, unless that's been done. For all of, for a bunch of us to be in the same room. Councilman
Right.
Grossman, I had something to add. I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I think you just got to look at our definition of essential business may have to be looked at too, because that's one of the opening statements here. Only essential business can be done in this manner. So I think it's also having to be looked at. The other aspect is what prevents, if we have meetings, what prevents any public from being in there, and what do we have to impose with regards to social distancing and what have you.
The public would have to be permitted to attend, and we would have to, well, we could direct, distancing, social distancing.
Right.
While the,
Right, but that has to be considered also as we go through logistics here.
exactly.
Right.
And we would continue the Facebook streaming. We could set, chairs, remove chairs and have 6 feet apart as far as distancing I think there's ways we can set up the Civic Center if we needed. Like Mayor Dye said, though, can the electronics accommodate that?
And I think for me, I think, I think, we've got stuff that we need to get done in a regular business that's not essential. And I just want to get council's take on working back to getting back to regular business.
Well,
Buckholz.
I would consider us kind of an essential business, for an operation of a town. I would pretty much feel that we were essential, not non-essential when it comes to that, especially from an operational standpoint. I mean, I'd rather if I'm perfectly fine coming in, because I've been going to my own job and got my own employees. We've been working not around the clock, but we've been working since we haven't stopped. So, and I'm considered an essential business from a printing perspective. And I feel, I know that some of you guys have some underlying conditions. I'm perfectly fine if they stay home and we can run it from one, if we have to run it from one unit and not have everybody logged on. We don't all need to be on it. We can broadcast it on the TV if we can. So we can simplify the internet usage out of this whole thing. So I think it might bring a little bit more comfort, so we're not all hidden up in our domicile. Since everything else seems to be opening, I'm fine with opening, but that's just me.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
No, I think we should just continue as we are under the emergency ordinance until such time that we really need to make that decision. And we also, in the meantime, should check the state code to see if it, if it's too, it makes sense that under normal conditions, you should only be allowed 2 per year. These aren't normal conditions, so at the moment, I think we're fine. Moving forward, as John says, we can open the town hall again, and those of us that are going to call in will call in until such time as the emergency is declared over. But Paul brought up a very good point with regard to essential business and how that gets defined. Because I like Andy, I think we need to get back to work. I mean, we got lots of stuff to do.
Mhm.
Councilman Bannon?
I keep losing the feed. I've missed probably half of the conversation.
Libby, can you
You just
help him
pop. You
turn
just pop back. You
video
just
off?
pop back up. What?
If we could get you to turn your video off, it helps with mine's the same way, but I don't know if Libby can coach you through how to do that. I can't remember what kind of setup you have. Are you on a computer or iPad?
I can stop
Right up at the
his
top, you
video.
can stop video.
Yeah, okay.
I'll stop. I'm going to stop your video, Chris.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
helped my intermittent thing, so maybe it'll help you.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I
anyway,
can hear.
Councilman Bannon, you
It
hear
looks
me?
the same.
Councilman Bannon?
Yes.
All right, so anyway, basically what I brought up was that the ordinance, our regular ordinance, not this emergency ordinance, allows for 2 phone calls in a year. I'd ask council to consider passing an ordinance, just a temporary ordinance that would, during this virus, that would lift that and allow members of council that may have underlying conditions or something that don't want to attend regular meetings. Libby brought up a good point, or John brought up a good point, one of them, that that's based off the state code, so we may not be able to do that anyway. So I was just throwing it out there, and I'm really just, what I'm trying to do is to start meeting again so we can get back to some sort of, or feel council's pulse on starting to meet again, so we can get back to.
I agree with that.
So we get back to actually doing regular business instead of these 1 or 2 items here and there once a week or every 2 weeks. So that was my whole purpose of bringing it up. So that's the gist of it in a nutshell. So I think either John or Libby, one will look into it Monday or Tuesday,
Okay.
or to see if we can actually even amend that because of the virus. So anyway, that was the conversation, Councilman Bannon. You got anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. And did you said you agreed with that approach?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Grossman?
Yes. Yes.
You gotta get one vote, Paul.
That was an echo.
Councilman Buckholz?
Yes.
Councilwoman Holloway?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
So if we could do it, John,
All right.
I guess, so we will figure out a way to start going back to some sort of normalcy.
Would you be willing to do so as quickly as next week? And next week we're scheduled for the budget adoption a week from tonight.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
As long as we can institute that our other members can call in, and that doesn't
Yeah.
count as their 1 of 2.
Oh. In
Right.
real- yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I got you. So the clerk and I will look into that tomorrow, and we'll get back to you on that process. If we can make it happen for next week, we will.
So Just to clarify, just for my thoughts, so we would, if we can, and we needed to adopt an ordinance, we would do that probably first next week, right?
Well, I think we could do it like as Councilwoman Holloway suggested. We could do it without the ordinance next week because we can still use the current procedures, and the budget is essential business. If we need an ordinance and we can have it done by then, I'll add that to the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think there's anything that states that we can't come in that amendment, right? There's nothing that says we can't go into, there's nothing that says we
Correct.
can't. We're operating based on that, but it doesn't say we can't come in.
Correct.
I think John's completely right, so.
Okay.
Mayor Dice,
Yep. Well,
we will continue the Facebook feed because I think that will help the amount of public from coming in because I think they're watching. We'll be able to do that.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you all very much. With that being said, that concludes our business that we have listed tonight. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
So Councilwoman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Bannon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilman Grossman,
only one yes.
Councilman Buckholz.
Yes, and Chris Manning never looked so good.
Yeah, right.
All right, thank you all, and everybody have a
So-
good night.